Hey, what's up guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. In this video I want to give you 5 quick tips on phrasing. So this is something that gets brought up a lot. People want to know, how do you take all these scale patterns and all this theory and stuff and basically make music out of it? So basically, if you're looking to play a solo is just a bunch of phrases put together. So phrases are just individual ideas. The same way as when you talk. When you talk in ideas, but the full paragraph is just a bunch of sentences put together. So each sentence might just be a little idea in its own, but if you put all of these together, you express the complete thought. Same thing with phrases. If you want to play a solo, you take idea 1 plus idea 2 plus idea 3, otherwise known as phrase 1, phrase 2, phrase 3. You put all that stuff together and you express the complete idea. So that's phrasing. So in this video, I just want to give you 5 quick tips on phrasing. Tip number 1 is to take the melodic component and translate it into rhythm only. So if you're like me, you have music going on in your head all day, every day. I constantly have tunes. I'm constantly singing tunes. They're not always songs. More often than not, they're not even songs that are already out. I just constantly have music going on in my head. So, when you have music going on in your head, that has 2 components to it. Number 1, there's the actual notes. Number 2, there's the rhythmic component. So if you can take whatever ideas you have in your head and translate them into just the rhythmic component only, that's a huge step. So what I mean by that is, let's take this phrase from it's the Sultans of Swing, the second solo. It goes like this. All right, so that's the phrase. So if you take that and you just break it down into just its rhythmic components only, it's da 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 da. So this may sound stupid, but this really is how you take what's in your head and put it onto this fretboard. So you can figure out the notes just by understanding the scale patterns and the theory and stuff like that. But the actual rhythmic component of the phrase is also a very important part of this. So figure out the rhythmic component of it and then figure out the notes. So tip number 2 is to figure out where the strong beats occur and then accent those in your phrase. So what I mean by strong beats are, if you're playing along with a metronome, or if you have if you have the timing in your head, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the strong beats may occur on the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, or any combination. It can also occur on the subdivisions between the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 1, N, 2, N, 3, N, 4, N, 1, N, 2, N. That would be called the upbeat. So figure out where the strong beats occur in your phrase and make sure to accent them in your playing. So to take that idea from the previous example, the Sultans of Swing, so that's accenting on the 1 and the 3. Da 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 da. 2, 3, 4. Da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that little phrase, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I'm trying to overemphasize this point, but I'm also going to just do a quick demo real quick where I accent on the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. So I'm basically just going to noodle around playing short little phrases, but I'm going to accent on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's going to be 4 demos right in a row, so you can just kind of hear what I'm talking about in an actual example. So tip number 3, target chord tones. You know I was going to say this if you've been watching my videos for any length of time. I'm always talking about chord tone targeting. It's super important. It applies all the time, no matter what concept we're looking at. Chord tone targeting is always going to apply. You don't just want to focus on the scale, you want to focus on the chords that you're soloing over. So going back to the example, the Sultans of Swing solo number 2 example, the rhythm section that's taking place during that solo is a D minor chord to a B flat major chord to a C major chord. So D minor, B flat major, C major. That puts you right in the key of D minor. So he's soloing right up here using the D minor pentatonic scale. Makes sense, you're in the key of D minor, you use the D minor pentatonic scale. So this is the scalar framework right here. And then you can add in your additional notes to make the D natural minor scale. So that's just your scale. All right, so that's going to be the notes that you are working within, but the best sounding notes to play on a per chord basis are going to be the chord tones. So over the D minor chord, you're going to want to focus on the chord tones of the D minor chord. Those are the notes D, F, and A. Over the B flat major chord, you're going to want to focus on those notes. Over the C major chord, you're going to want to focus on those notes. So within this pattern here, the D minor chord can be found in the E minor shape like this. The B flat major chord can be found in the C shape. The C major chord can be found in the D shape. So how do I know all this? Well, that's the CAGE system. That's where the CAGE system comes into play. The CAGE system is not about scales, it's about chord tones. So you can take any major chord, any minor chord, and you can play any major chord or minor chord anywhere on the neck of the guitar within any scale pattern that you want, as long as you can recognize where the CAGE shapes are, wherever you happen to be. All right, so let's see how this stuff actually applies to the Sultans of Swing solo. So the solo starts out like this. So that first little lick there, that's all in the D minor chord. So he's largely playing these chord tones right here. So he bends from this note on the 12th fret of the G string to this note, which is the note A. So just playing on the pentatonic there. A lot of the pentatonic notes are the notes of the D minor chord. And then when it gets to the B flat major chord, he's actually landing on this note here. So that's not necessarily a triad tone of the B flat major chord. That would actually be the 6th. It would make like a B flat major 6 type of chord, but it's still a nice sounding note to land on over that particular chord. So then when he gets to the C chord, he's doing all this stuff. So if you can see the C chord in the D shape right here, so he's playing a lot of these tones right here. So he's actually just kind of walking up the scale. So right there, that's from the C major chord. All right, so he's targeting chord tones right there, but the important thing here is the part where he does the So that first one right there, that's coming right from the D minor chord, right? The D minor chord's in this shape. And this is also a chord tone here. So he's using all chord tones. And then when it's on the B flat chord, he's going like this, which is coming right from that B flat major chord, which is in the C shape. And then when it gets to the C major chord, he's coming up here. Alright, so that you can either say that the C major chord's in the D shape here, or in the C shape here. So forgive me, I'm not Mark Knopfler. I use a pick. I can't play, fingerstyle like he does, but, whatever. I'm just trying to teach the theory here. So anyway, that's how the chord tone targeting stuff applies to the Sultan's solo, at least that part of it. So the fourth tip is going to be less is more. So the best example of this idea or this concept would be Dave Gilmour. I am a super huge fan of Dave Gilmour. He takes just little chunks of scale pieces, like maybe like 4 notes or 5 notes or something like that, and he makes magic happen with just that little chunk of a scale. So you don't need to play full scales. I mean, you kind of want to know your scales. Obviously, you ultimately want to know the whole fretboard. But when it comes to actual soloing, you don't need to use the full fretboard. You don't even need to use a full scale pattern. You can just use a little tiny piece of a scale pattern. So let's go back to this scale pattern right here. And let's even add the upper extension on here. So that's a pretty big chunk of notes. So you can just kind of confine that to like 5 notes or something. So let's just focus on this upper extension here. So when you're making up your phrases here, just use those notes. Whatever, just kind of focus right on that little area and do your phrases just using those notes. And of course, the whole chord tone targeting thing is still going to apply, but even if you can't instantly see the chord shapes lighting up, wherever you happen to be, you can still use your ear. More often than not, your ear is going to be the best guide of whether it's a chord tone or not. So the perfect sounding notes are usually going to be the chord tones of the underlying chord, and your ear is going to let you know that. So just within this little five note area, you're going to want to be hitting perfect notes. You're going to want to be timing your rhythm correctly. You're going to want to be accenting on the strong beats. All the stuff that we talked about previously, just confined into a very small little area. So you don't need a lot of notes to make a huge impactful solo. So tip number 5 is to steal other people's licks. So it's not a crime to do this. Everyone does it. I do it. Your favorite guitar players do it. Everyone does this. So, when you're learning a bunch of these solos from a bunch of different guitar players, I'm sure you have found a phrase that you play all the time. It's just kind of your go-to phrase. The Sultans of Swing lick, that's kind of one of my go-to phrases. I use it all the time. So if I use it in a solo, the solo's more often than not going to be in a completely different context. It's not going to be in the context of Sultans of Swing. It may be in another key. It may be over a different chord progression of some sort, whatever. The thing is, I can use that lick and no one's going to say, hey, you stole that from Sultans of Swing. It doesn't happen, Because the context and the key and the song and everything's different, people are going to be in the vibe of whatever song you happen to be playing. If I want to borrow a lick from, Dave Gilmour, if I want to borrow a lick from, Mark Knopfler or whatever, and throw them into my own solos, no one's going to know. I don't do it too much. I don't sit there and just take other people's licks and then put it all together and claim it as my own. No, I improvise a lot, but in my improvisation, I may have a lick that I learned 10 years ago that I kind of just use in all my solos, and I just throw that lick in there. Metallica used to be my favorite band when I was younger, and there's certain Metallica licks that I use in solos. I can't actually remember them right now as I'm speaking, but when I do that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's that Metallica lick that I learned when I was 12. So, borrow licks, they've already been worked out for you. People have already made up phrases that sound good, that work. Borrow them. No one's going to punish you for it. So that's tip number 5. So that's my 5 tips for phrasing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you next time.